Hey guys, my name's Gavin. Welcome back to a brand new video. Today, I'm going to be talking to you guys all about what I think makes a good melody. My friend Aiden Han and I just released the Indigo loop kit. It's going to be linked down in the description. It's 10 guitar loops, all free to download. Yeah, down in the description. So yeah, let me throw this dart. Follow me on Instagram at gavinhadley_. Let's get into it. I'm doing this till I get a bullseye. Like we just missed the board there, but at least it hit. Last time it didn't hit. Yeah, the topic of today's video, what makes a good melody. A little disclaimer, I believe that like everyone has a different idea of what actually makes a good melody. Everyone's ear is different, everyone likes different things, that's why everyone's melodies sound different. People pick up on different things. I have a list of 3 things that I believe make up a good melody for me. So the first one is direction and purpose. As a listener, do you have a feeling, are you able to follow the melody? Do you know where it's gonna go? And also, I think like a good rule of thumb to like test your melodies, or at least this is what I do, is it singable? So if something is super complex and it has a bunch of different pieces going on, it's really hard for the listener to like latch onto it and find a piece in specific that they like and are able to sing and get stuck in their head. If it's not singable, if you can't latch on to one part of it, like the centerpiece of the melody, it's gonna be really hard to get it stuck in someone's head. The second one, you guys have all heard this, is simplicity. For me, I went through a time where I really was doing a lot in my melodies. I was placing a lot of notes, had a lot of different pieces going on, but then recently, I've really been starting to scale it back a little bit and simplify everything. And I think something that has helped with that is me being introduced into live instruments and actually like understanding what can be played on certain instruments and what can't, and like how beneficial the sound of a live instrument is when you're making melodies. I really think it just adds to whatever melody you're making. If you're playing it like on a live guitar or a live piano, it just makes it sound that much better and makes you not feel the need to add as much stuff to it because you just want to show off like the realistic tone or the realistic melody that you played on it. Now the third one is something that is going to be pretty surprising to most people, but for me, I believe that music theory does not make a good melody. I will say this, but it does have a little caveat. I think that you should learn music theory for chords and chord structures. I've talked about this in my reacting to old videos video. When I was first making beats and stuff, I was aimlessly like clicking in chord progressions and stuff and not really knowing what a major or minor chord is. That's something that's super easy to learn if you guys don't already know that. Just watch like a BusyWorks Beats video or any video that explains chords. Learn how to place it in a major and minor triad inside of the piano roll and then build off that. So the thing about music theory that I feel like a lot of producers don't really consider is music theory is really just a way of being able to write and further understand music. It's like a universal like term or terms for things that allow people to understand them better. And I feel like when people start bringing in music theory into their melodies, it takes the creative aspect out of things. This isn't the case for all people. I know like Simon Servita and stuff, he's still really talented. But I feel like when people start really bringing in music theory, they lose that creativity aspect and they're just going by the rule book. And one of the big things in music is that there are no rules. And I just think that music theory isn't really it for most people. Those are my 3 tips, or things that I think make up a good melody. Now we're gonna go into a bunch of things that I wrote down to how to make better melodies. All right, so the first one is gonna be all about splitting up your instruments in your different patterns inside of FL Studio. So when I started making music, I was a big piano guy, so I would load up a piano, like an Omnisphere Keyscape piano or Addictive Keys or something, and I would just lay out my entire melody in there, the chord progression, like the melody that sits on top, supporting elements to that, like bass notes. Like sometimes I would even have like my own counter melody in that same melody. But now when I make my beats, I like to have everything very simple and spaced out into different patterns with different sounds. And like sometimes I'll even have like a piano chord progression and then I'll load up a different piano and just have it in like a separate MIDI. So I can like clearly see what I'm actually changing now and what I'm adding to it with the new instrument. I don't have to see the chord progression and stuff in the same thing. And you can also add different effects to the top melody that you don't want affecting the chord progression and stuff like that. And also I feel like my melodies have improved a lot since I've started doing that. It's just something about having stuff spaced out. It gives you new ideas and it helps you like create and like build up your melody. as opposed to just like jamming a bunch of stuff into one MIDI. It also adds a lot more depth to your melodies if you have a bunch of different sounds working together in different patterns to help build up that loop. It like really creates a more full sound too. So the second one is learning instruments, and that's something that I've recently started doing. Don't get me wrong, I'm not doing much with the guitar, but I'm trying to practice it. Learning how to play instruments, it allows you to eliminate the, I've said this in a bunch of my videos, it eliminates the latency that the piano roll has. And what I mean by latency is like, say you're going in the piano roll, I don't have my FL Studio recording, I just wanted to sit down and talk for this video, but say you're going into the piano roll and you click in some notes, you have to like wait to hear what those sound like, especially if you put those towards the end of your pattern and you're like someone like me that doesn't like skip around, that likes to listen to the whole thing again. It just takes so much longer to actually hear what you're playing, as opposed to like if you play something on the guitar, you can instantly hear what it sounds like, or something on the MIDI keyboard, you can instantly hear what it sounds like, and that speeds up the process a lot, and it allows you to like eliminate those bad options for your melodies a lot quicker. Definitely try investing into a MIDI keyboard. They're not that expensive, and I feel like they go a long way, especially like if you're just getting one. If you're in like the minor scale, if you transpose your melody to D sharp minor, you can play all of the black notes on the keyboard, and those are like all in scale. And there's a couple other ones that you can do that for major and minor keys too. You can play like all the white notes for one, but that's just a super easy way of getting ideas out quicker. And then you can like transpose your melody back to the original scale that it was in after you play the top melody. That's something that I do a lot. And then my singing method. When I talked about earlier about is the melody singable, I feel like a really easy way to make a singable melody is to actually like sing it into FL Studio. So what I do is I have this plugin called Melodies. FL Studio has its like own built-in audio to MIDI thing, but I use Melodies. Look that up. I actually might make a full video on this. If you guys want to see this video, feel free to let me know. But basically, I have like a chord progression or something, and then I sing into my microphone with auto-tune on to make sure I stay in key the entire time, because it doesn't really matter how my voice sounds, it's gonna get transposed into MIDI anyway. But I sing something into the microphone, and also like a lot of producers say like they have these really crazy ideas in their mind, but they can't translate them to the MIDI. I feel like this is definitely a really good way of doing that, because you're literally like singing out your ideas that you have in your mind. Basically, you let Melodies hear what you're singing, it transports it into MIDI notes, you save those MIDI notes, and then you can put them into an instrument. Like it's just picking up all the different keys that your voice hits, and sometimes this doesn't work the best. Like sometimes I hit my notes wrong, or Melodies picks them up wrong, but I still have that rhythm that I created, and I feel like simplifying the melody so you don't have to worry about rhythm and you can just worry about the notes that are actually playing, that goes a long way in my opinion. It's definitely helped me with a lot of melodies. I've been doing it a lot lately, and then vice versa too. If the rhythm isn't right but the notes are right, you kind of just eliminate tasks that you would have to worry about, and you're able to simplify and focus on smaller things. And like I talked about this in my workflow video about like simplifying and breaking up tasks, like making midis, letting them sit for a little bit, going in, making loops, letting those sit for a little bit. It gives your brain a little bit more of a break from listening to the same thing over and over. And I have another point here which really goes along with that. Something isn't working out, move on or come back to it later. That's something you guys have all probably heard, but I feel like a lot of people get fixated on stuff. I know I was one to do that. I would get in my head and like try to get something just perfect. But I feel like when you do that, you kind of lose out on that creative aspect and like that whole flow state, going with the flow, working along the melody. I feel like you kind of lose that when you get fixated on stuff. So just move on, come back to it. Now I have another point that really goes along with this. This is a tip that I haven't really heard too much people bring up in this sort of way. Make melodies and just loops and stuff, but have the mindset that you're gonna come back to it later. So this is also really good for mixing too, if you are trying to work on your mix. I think a lot of times I make a melody and then I come back to it. It can just either be like a couple minutes later or like an hour later or days later. I come back to it and I have new ideas in my mind, because when you are like constantly working on something, eventually you kind of burn out slowly and you stop producing those ideas as much as you were when you first started the track. And I feel like coming back to it, it reintroduces a lot of new ideas. It definitely does for me. I probably re-export my loops, like 1/4 of the loops that I make end up getting re-exported because I think of different things to do to them. So this one here, you guys have all heard it before in various videos, but practicing and enjoying the process and accepting that stuff is not gonna happen overnight, because I don't really care what any video says. That's just not really how it works. In order to like truly build up your sound and your skill set, it's gonna take a while. Like you can feel good after watching one tutorial video and like having this new like way that you're gonna make melodies and stuff. That's all good. It'll work short term, but long term, eventually you'll get used to that. And for me at least, this might not be for all producers, but I feel like, again, melodies are like so subjective from person to person. Everything changes from person to person. But for me, from my experience, doing that doesn't always work out the best for me, because eventually I kind of get into a new habit and I get burnt out from that. And this brings us into our last point, which is always making melodies in different ways to prevent things like burnouts and like beat block from happening. So I like to make my melodies in all different sorts of ways. So sometimes I just go in the piano roll, I lay in a chord progression, click in the notes for the top melody, just work basically with solely MIDI, and then I put like a vocal because I do that kind of stuff. I'll do that. Other times I'll have my friend Miles play guitar MIDIs on an actual guitar that I play out, and then I'll go in and I'll try to add my own guitar top line to that. And then other times I will start with like a vocal or really just anything, and I feel like it's important to just vary up with what you're doing. It's like if you're just constantly like always starting with a chord progression and then going into a top line, that really makes it hard to consistently create. Consistently creating is a lot less practical than a lot of people say it is. I feel like I believe in taking breaks and stuff. Just take a break every once in a while. It's okay. When you feel ready to come back and create, do it. I feel like it's really important to go with the flow in that aspect of music, and if you're forcing everything, then maybe it's just time to take a quick break. But always, if you're trying to build up a brand, don't take breaks from that. Constantly try to do different things. Like for me, when I'm not making melodies, I am talking to people, I practice Photoshop. I'm always thinking about new ideas for videos and just music in general. But yeah, that's about it for the video. Hopefully I was able to show you guys some tips. Yeah, hopefully this improves your guys' melodies. Feel free to let me know what you thought of the video. And if you have any other suggestions, feel free to put those down below in the comments. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.
Julian, welcome back.